Thus. Te, they, Bartree, of the Master, Nirdesham, the direction, Adaya, receiving, Shirasa, with their heads, Adritaha, respecting, Tata, so also, Prajanam, of all the citizens, Karanam, persecution, Vidaduhu, executed, Karanapriyaha, who are expert in persecuting others. You know what persecuting means? Good. So, translation. Thus the demons, being fond of disastrous activities, took Hiranyakashipu's instructions on their heads with great respect and offered him obeisances. According to his directions, they engaged in envious activities directed against all living beings. So, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The followers of demoniac principles, as described here, are thoroughly envious of the general populace. In the present day, scientific advancement exemplifies such envy. The discovery of nuclear energy has been disastrous to people in general because demons all over the world are manufacturing nuclear weapons. The word Kadana Priyaha is very significant in this regard. The demoniac persons who want to kill Vedic culture are extremely envious of the feeble citizens, and they act in such a way that ultimately their discoveries will be inauspicious for everyone. Jagato Hitaha. The 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita fully explains how the demons engage in sinful activities for the destruction of the populace. So, Iti Devatri Nirdesham Adaya Shirasadritaha Tata Prajanam Karanam Vidadhu Kadana Priyaha. So, Om Gada Tibadandasha Garanjana Shlakaya Chakshura Miditam Yena Tasmai Shigave Maha. So, it's important, as Prabhupada did, that we make reference to the 16th chapter, which is called the Divining and Demoniac Natures. Okay? And so, it's actually, wait a second, I'm in the wrong chapter. Divine and Demoniac Natures. Okay. So anyway, let me make reference to what Srila Prabhupada says first in the purport about nuclear bombs or nuclear weapons. There's an interesting aphorism or abbreviation called MAD. You know what that refers to? That keeps the world more or less from destroying itself. Anyone know what that means? MAD. MAD means crazy. But in this particular case, it's a abbreviation for mutual assured destruction. You ever hear that? What that means is the only way you can keep the people from killing each other is if each side has enough bombs so they'll destroy the other side. And they also have bombs that will go off automatically if the other side sends missiles or something to them. So that's called mutual assured destruction. So you find with Russia and in the United States in particular, and other countries are coming up right now, that they have so many bombs that will basically kill everybody in the whole world like several times over. Not only that, just the fact of them, if they, let's say, detonate nuclear weapons to a certain extent, there'll be something called a nuclear winter. You heard about that before? Nuclear winter. You haven't heard about these things.
He doesn't read.
He doesn't read.
Oh.
Too bad. Okay. Don't know how to read. A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
I know how to read if I keep don't like
Anyway, so nuclear winter means the bombs will go off and there'll be so much of these particulate stuff in the air that they will block the sun. And guess what happens when the sun is blocked?
winter.
Not only winter, but the vegetables won't have any
Sunlight to grow.
sunlight to grow and you will
Die.
die. Very good. So that's called nuclear winter. So this could actually happen very, very easily. And not only that, since the advent of the atomic bombs or the invention of the atomic bombs, they've come up with more weapons. Actually, the demons, they have so many different types of weapons. Even before the atomic bomb, they had chemical weapons. In World War I, they were using a particular type of gas. What was it? Anyone know? Something you like to eat.
Mustard.
Mustard gas.
What?
Yeah, they would use mustard gas and it would actually disintegrate the skin and make people blind.
Oh.
And they would just fire it at each other, and so many people got deformed and killed by this mustard gas. You know, what to speak of bullets and everything else.
Worse was World War II.
What's that?
Worse was World War II. The chemicals they dropped.
Yeah,
With the bomb they dropped, atomic bomb they dropped.
yeah, they
Japan,
dropped
then
on
the
Hiroshima
Vietnam,
and Nagasaki.
Then there's the Vietnam War with its own chemicals.
Yeah, in Vietnam War, they used the deforestation elements, you know, things that would actually destroy all the trees. Like Agent Orange, it was called. You heard about that?
Yeah.
You didn't hear about that. You got to read more. So Agent Orange. And anyway, and nowadays they have these laser weapons, and they have these sound weapons where they can destroy your brain
Ooh.
just with sound vibration. They just focus the sound vibration. All of a sudden your brain becomes like scrambled eggs or something like that. And so these are demoniac personalities. So let me mention here some of the verses that Krishna speaks in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that illustrate the demoniac mentality. Of course, the first one is a very important verse, Pravatim cha nivritim cha jana na vidur asuraha nasocham napi chacharo nasacham teshu vijate. It says, those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness, nor proper behavior, nor truth is found in them. In other words, let me translate that into common English. They say that there actually are no objective principles of morality. We're not here just talking about spiritual life. You know, spiritual life means, of course, you chant Hare Krishna, worship God in any religion, and you're not the body. But here we're talking about what's called sub-religious principles. You know what a sub-religious principle is, Keshav? Sub-religious principles, all right, describes, it's like the Ten Commandments in the Bible. Thou shalt not kill. Hare Krishna. What a nice surprise. I was just thinking of you. Thou shalt not kill. You should honor your what, Keshav?
Mother and father.
Do you honor them?
It depends.
So you're not even following sub-religious principles. Honor your mother and father. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property. You should honor the Lord thy God who has saved thee from Egypt or whatever. Saved thee from Maya. So you got all these different sub-religious. We have sub-religious principles too. What are some of our sub-religious principles?
The four eggs.
The four eggs.
Yes, no meat, fish, and eggs.
No meat, fish, or eggs.
No intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling.
No gambling. These are sub-religious principles. These are, let's use a little logic for you, see if you study logic. These are necessary but not sufficient. You understand what I mean? Maybe I should become a tutor or something like that. It's a logical term that in order to be Krishna conscious, you have to follow the sub-religious principles, But just following the sub-religious principles don't make you Krishna conscious. Like Prabhupada would give the example that a monkey is a vegetarian. Of course, a monkey doesn't follow the other principles. But anyway, well, a monkey is vegetarian, that doesn't make him Krishna conscious. So simply being a vegetarian is not sufficient. It's necessary. So remember, logical term. So sub-religious principles are what Krishna is referring to here. Therefore, what we have in modern society is what? The concept that morality is subjective rather than objective. You understand that? Subjective means, morality just is actually do what is right, what is wrong is due to the culture that you're in. It's not really anything that's like objective in terms of eternal principles of morality. So therefore you have what we call the slippery slope of immorality occurring right now. Slippery slope means more and more things that we used to consider immoral, or that Krishna considers immoral, are now being considered not only moral, but desirable. I mean, give me an example of that.
Meat eating.
What?
Meat eating.
That's something that's, yeah. Yes, that's true, but I'm talking about morality, more or less morality. Like abortion. Like if you had, maybe 100 years ago, abortion was illegal everywhere in the world. It was illegal. Why? Because people were following some objective standard, in the Bible, of course. Or, anyway, I don't know if I should get into this. There's people watching. I won't mention that one.
Yeah.
It'd be politically incorrect. Anyway, they said there's so many things that you have to worry about PC language. You know what PC language is? Politically correct language. If I start to criticize certain things, gender-related things like that, then probably, half my disciples will reject me.
I know which one now.
So anyway, you find this, change in morality, and it will keep changing. It will keep changing. I mean, people can even make some propaganda that, incest is all right in the future. Who knows what will be accepted? Or eating your children is going to be accepted in the future. That's Kali Yuga.
There's some money about it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yuck.
So anyway, so the point is, when you don't have any objective standard of morality, anything goes according to society. Right now, even something so simple as, let's say, euthanasia. You've heard of euthanasia before?
Yes.
Euthanasia means so-called mercy killing. But that's murder. We're not supposed to engage, even if a cow or an animal that gets sick, sometimes nowadays they take your dog or animal away from you if it gets sick and they want to put it down or, put it to sleep. But they don't understand what are objective principles. So objective morality is listed, principles of morality are listed in the Manu Samhita. Manu Samhita, Prabhupada said, is the law book for humankind. Now, there's certain things in the Manu Samhita that we don't follow, we'll read later, but mostly we do follow these things in the Manu Samhita. What you eat, what is considered murder or killing, etc. So that's one point here about demons. So you can see it. Who is a demon? By someone who does not consider moral principles to be objective. That's one of the points. The second point is, they say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and no cause other than lust. Of course, what they're talking about here is genetics. You understand? That, that the geneticists say that because there's two different things they talk about when they're talking about survival of the fittest. One is that someone is stronger, obviously, with better genes, and therefore they're more apt to survive. And secondly, they're more apt to attract a mate. There was this whole book I read when I was young called The Naked Ape.
Mm.
You read that book?
We were supposed to, but
You didn't read
it's
it.
just been cut out. So
Yeah, so that book was purportedly, supposedly, showing, it didn't actually, I read it actually. When I was in school, I had to read it for school, showing how monkeys became human beings. Because what happened is the monkeys, they have a lot of hair, as we've all seen. And so when you had some monkeys with less hair, they were able to attract mates easier. It's actually kind of funny, anyway, because somehow they were more attractive. You could see their muscles better without all the hair and other parts of the body. So that's what that book talks about, The Naked Ape. That's my book review of the books. But that's the essence of that book. So in other words, it's just because of lust, as Krishna says here, that the different species develop. And it is interesting, within each species there is actually so much lust. I was just looking at a video of a fish that spends like a week decorating, making a mandala. Did you ever see this? There's one fish, you've seen the fish. This little male fish. He makes this beautiful mandala in the sand. You saw that video?
yeah. Came out last year, really last year.
Yeah, like he spends a whole week or so, several days.
Yeah.
Sorry. To attract the most beautiful female fish. And she comes and she sees the mandala and says, oh, he must be my husband. So in one sense, yes, I mean, there is a lot of lust. But what is that lust coming from? The lust is coming from the imitation of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. It's not the cause of all the species developing or, nothing like that. It's actually an imitation of God's pastimes. Just like when the gopis go out to meet Krishna, they decorate themselves nicely. And when Krishna wants to attract the gopis, he plays his flute. So, mundane reflection of that would be some rock and roll star, rock and roll, who plays his guitar to attract the groupies. You know what a groupie is? A groupie are the girls that follow these rock and roll stars around. So, anyways, all perverted reflections, but it's not, let's take the rock and roll stars again, because they are so attractive. It's not that we're going to develop genetically more and more rock and roll stars. Anyway, I thought that was funny. And then there's the verse that Prabhupada makes reference to in the purport. The next verse is, following such conclusions, the demoniac who are lost to themselves, who have no intelligence, engage in unbeneficial, horrible words meant to destroy the world. So what the conclusion they get from that is that might makes right. You've heard of that before? Might makes right. Now that means if you have the power, it doesn't matter. Because basically, it doesn't matter whether I cause you pain, Keshav, because you're just a machine. Right?
Yeah.
You're just a machine. You're not a soul. You're not a living entity. And it doesn't matter. So I just want to somehow or other enjoy my machine. Of course, they didn't say my machine. They say I machine. And then another conclusion they have is that we will make better machines that are conscious. That's called artificial intelligence. And these artificial intelligent beings will be the next step in evolution. You've ever heard that before? That's the next step in evolution. And the problem is, they're thinking that they may destroy us. And there's so many movies about that too. How these intelligent beings, there's one called I, Robot, and different movies like that, will destroy us because we're actually like the Aborigines or something like that. And they'll take over. And actually another thing they're doing with this AI is autonomous weapons.
Oh, whoa.
That means weapons that can actually somehow or other, let's say, scan a whole group of people and say, okay, so he's the criminal, or he could actually do something. We'll scan his brain and knock him off. So, I mean, this is demoniac. But these autonomous weapons, or automatons, or artificial intelligence, they don't have consciousness. They cannot have feelings, although they can emulate feelings. When I was young, the scientists or the computer programmers came out with this program called ELIZA. You've heard of that before?
That's very old.
That's very old. It's not, you've read a lot. She's intelligent. So ELIZA was like a psychiatrist who you would say, she would ask you, how do you feel today? I feel lousy. When did that start? Yesterday. How was your childhood? I hated my mother. What did your mother do to you? You know, so it could actually do things like that. So it emulated consciousness. Or nowadays, of course, we have, you know, Google Voice and Siri and things like that.
Google Home.
And so, like right now, you know, when I go to sleep at night in my home, I say, okay, Google, good night. I got to be careful because my phone will respond to that right now. As we say it softly. It says, good night. Sleep tight. You know, so it appears to have consciousness, but consciousness is not an epiphenomena of matter. It doesn't come from a combination of matter. It comes from the spirit soul, not from the material arrangement. Although the demons say, you know, consciousness is just coming from a combination of material elements, and then when we perfect quantum computing, we're going to be, you've heard about this before, quantum computing, we're going to have something more powerful than the human brain in a tiny little space, and that will become more intelligent than us, and hopefully it'll be our servant, but not, maybe we'll be its servant, and basically, you know, we'll be able to, at least if it's our servant, we'll be able to sit around and do nothing the whole time and plug our brain into the computer and enjoy life in this way. Anyway, crazy. This is demoniac. Taking shelter of insatiable lust and absorbed in the concept of pride, conceit of pride and false prestige, the demoniac thus illusioned are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent. Impermanent means things that aren't permanent. They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. More verses. Self-complacent and always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifices in name only, without following any rules or regulations. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion. Those who are, and here's what happens to them. Those who are envious and mischievous are the lowest among men. I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life, attaining repeated birth among species of demoniac life. O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Anyway, so these are the demons. And in order to avoid being a demon, here's a test for you. We have to give up going through 3 doorways. What are the 3 doorways?
Kama, Krodha, and
Lust and greed.
Yes, Lanka and greed, which Krishna describes as 3 gates. So if we do not avoid those 3 gates, then we become demoniac too. Because as we said before, if we relativize the regulative principles, relativize morality, instead of thinking it's absolute principles, there are absolute principles of morality. Of course, there are relative let's say, ways of presenting Krishna consciousness, we have to be able to understand what is objective, what is subjective. I mean, subjective things are like the way we dress, our hairstyle, and things like that. But they're absolute principles, too, that are incontrovertible. So, any questions or comments? Yes?
It's not exactly a Krishna conscious question, but
Uh-oh.
if robots didn't have consciousness, how would they have the mind to overthrow us?
They can be programmed to do that. Actually, there's always a programmer, or the programmer can teach them how to program themselves, or the programmer can teach them how to program themselves, but there's always a person behind it.
Okay.
However, there is the danger that there will be a runaway program because person has not, let's say, taken precaution to see all the different problems that might occur in the program. So there is that possibility. So these are demoniac weapons, the autonomous weapons, and what to speak of course, the atom bomb, the hydrogen bomb, the chemical weapons, and also biological weapons. You know what a biological weapon is?
It's a weapon.
It's
Humans.
what? It's what?
Humans.
No. Biological weapon is basically some disease. And there's certain diseases that even if you get like a little speck of this disease on you, you die. And in many of the laboratories around the world, they're actually developing these and having these biological weapons. It's a dangerous world.
Mm-hmm.
Dangerous world. Just like recently in the UK, there was an attempt to kill one of the ex-spies. Yeah, I forget the guy's name, but one of the spies, Russian spies, who actually surrendered to the UK or the Western world, and they attempted to kill him with this biological weapon, and they were unsuccessful. Killed him and his daughter, actually, and actually killed someone else, died instead. So people are using these different weapons to hurt each other. This is demoniac. What to speak of something simple like abortion. I mean, how many people are aborted in Australia every year? Millions, maybe.
Yeah.
It means millions of babies being killed. What is the reaction for such a thing? And they think, well, this is choice, free choice. It is our body. We can do whatever we want with our body. Huh?
My freedom, my right. My freedom, my body, my right.
Yeah, my freedom, my body, my right. There's a little baby there who they call not life until it comes out. And they think it's all right because it's just a lump of flesh. And if you see this video, it's called The Silent Scream. You ever seen that? Devotees should watch that. Silent Scream. Nobody's seen that video? It's actually a color ultrasound of a abortion taking place.
Oh no.
And what happens is the baby, is a type of abortion called the D&C. So what happens is the baby, first of all, a knife is going for the baby, and the baby's screaming like that. And they're so demoniac, at least in America. They're fighting against a law that requires ladies to see that before they agree to an abortion. In other words, the demoniac people won't even allow the ladies to have information about what an abortion means, or it is. So this world is actually being run by people who are of demoniac mentality, and there's only one cure, is get them to chant Hare Krishna, give them prasadam. So we can save the world. We have the ability to save the world. But not simply by, protesting against abortion. Prophet said not to do that. Because people will not understand unless they chant the holy names and have more purified brain substance. Like you can show someone a picture of an animal being killed or whatever, and then the next minute they'll eat that animal. Or you can, the typical example I give is, let's say someone's a doctor in the hospital, and he's operating on someone, and he actually sees what the body is like, but he doesn't have any realization that he's not the body, or the body is just a bag of whatever it is. And then he looks over at the nurse next to him and says, hey cutie. He has one cutie on the operating table who is, where the guts are coming out. So people don't have. Can you imagine that? It's like when they were doing my operation. Unfortunately, I was conscious, and they were talking about cats and dogs. Yeah, somehow or other they didn't give me the right amount of anesthesia. So everybody in there, they weren't thinking, just this is a great saintly person. We want to make sure his eye is taken care of properly. They said, yeah, what type of dog do you? What kind of cat? I like cats. What type of cat do you like? And I was listening to this. I was laying on the operating table, tied up. I was ready to say, Chuparo, shut up. But I couldn't because they had me all tied up. So anyway, people are just so, in other words, they have to have realization before they change their behavior. This realization. I even mentioned the other day, I told my mother that she was acting like a cannibal because she was eating chicken. But there's no realization there. There's no connection unless one actually develops the mode of goodness and some empathy. In the mode of goodness, yes, you get some realization, at least material realization. So only by chanting the holy name of the Lord can we bring people up to a higher platform. And there's no other way. You can't just say, you should be in the mode of goodness, Prabhu. Don't you have any compassion, Prabhu? It doesn't work. Of course you don't say Prabhu. Mister. It's just like, people just don't get it. Fortunately, before I joined the movement, I got it, even before I chanted Hare Krishna, that meat came from animals. But most people it just doesn't connect, when you're going into a KFC, would you like a leg? People don't think leg. Isn't it? Wing. Gizzard. Liver. And, somehow they're using the same words and it doesn't even connect.
Before they were using different words, but now
they don't care. They just use it. It just doesn't connect. So that means they need realization. The mind has it. They have their Duramatus, like Prabhupada said, bad brain, or stool brain, or gobar brain. They have cow manure for their brains. So the only way it's a brain-giving movement, which is chanting the holy name. By chanting the holy name, one gets realization.
That's why Harinam is so important.
Yeah, so people hear the holy name. People take prasadam. People hear the holy name. They read Prabhupada's books. And they come to the realization, hey, this is actually a fact. And, meat comes from animals. Okay, on that happy note, all glories to His divine grace.